The morning I put the loaf of bread back on the shelf, my hands were shaking. I had counted the coins in my palm twice. I was $4 short. $4. I walked out of that store with a single can of beans and a decision hardening in my chest. I was done being crushed by a rent I could never quite pay. So I built my whole home for free. No mortgage, no landlord, no monthly bills sitting there waiting to bury me. I did it with things other people threw in the trash. And I am going to tell you exactly how, because this is not a story I invented to make you feel something. I lived every freezing night of it. Stay with me, because the thing that finally kept me warm through a winter that dropped to 9 degrees was a rusted steel drum somebody had abandoned by the side of a road. It cost me nothing. And if you have almost no money and not 1 square inch of land to your name, this still works, because I had neither when I started. Let me show you how I climbed out. For a long time, I believed the story everyone tells you. Work hard, pay your bills, keep your head down. I did all of it. I worked 2 jobs 1 year and still watched my rent climb faster than my paycheck ever could. Every month, I paid a number to a man I met exactly once, for a 1-bedroom apartment with a window that would not close all the way. When I finally sat down and added it up, I had handed landlords more than $70,000 over the years. 70,000. And I owned nothing. Not a nail, not a board. Nothing that was mine. That was the night something broke loose in me. Not in a sad way, in a clear way. I realized the whole arrangement was built so that people like me would run on a wheel forever and never get to stop. And I decided I was going to step off that wheel, even if I had to sleep in my car to do it. Which, for a while, is exactly what I did. The first thing I want you to understand is that I did not start with a plan. I started with panic. I moved what little I had into a 1998 sedan with a cracked windshield, and I parked it behind a shuttered grocery store where a night watchman I got to know just nodded and left me alone. I slept curled sideways across the back seat with my coat as a blanket. The cold came up through the floor of that car like it was reaching for me. I would wake at 3 in the morning with my toes gone numb, and I would run the engine for 10 minutes. Just 10. Because gas was money and money was almost gone. But those nights taught me the single most important thing about survival, and I want you to hear it before anything else. Cold does not come at you from the air. Cold steals your heat through whatever you are touching. The floor, the seat, the metal. Once I understood that, everything changed. Because it meant the answer was not a bigger furnace. The answer was a barrier. Something between me and the thing that was pulling my warmth away. And barriers, it turns out, are the one thing this world throws away for free every single day. That is where the real story begins. I started paying attention to what people discarded, and it stopped me cold how much of it was pure treasure. Behind construction sites, there were dumpsters, and inside those dumpsters were offcuts of rigid foam insulation board. The pink and blue sheets, builders trimmed them to fit and tossed the scraps, sometimes pieces 2 and 3 feet across. I learned that this foam carries an R value of around 6 for every single inch of thickness, which is a fancy way of saying it fights off cold better than almost anything you can buy. And they were throwing it in the trash. I asked one crew if I could take the scraps, and the foreman looked at me like I was strange, then shrugged and said, "Take all of it, lady. Saves me the dump fee." That shrug. I want to talk about that shrug, because I got a lot of those. The look people give a woman digging through a construction dumpster in a worn coat. Some of them looked away, embarrassed for me. One man muttered something to his buddy, and they both laughed. And I felt that old shame try to climb up my throat. But something had shifted in me by then. I looked at that laughing mix, and I thought, you are paying a landlord right now, and I am building a wall. We are not the same. That anger was clean fuel. I loaded my car until the springs sagged, and I drove away with enough insulation to line a small room, and it had cost me a sore back and nothing else. But foam scraps and a sedan do not make a home. I needed a shell. 4 walls and a roof that were mine. And that was the wall I could not climb by myself, so I had to get smarter about where free things live. Here is what almost nobody tells you. There are entire networks built around people giving things away, and most folks scroll right past them. I found a Buy Nothing group in my area, which is just neighbors offering up what they no longer want. I found Free Cycle, which has been quietly moving free goods between strangers since the early 2000s. And I learned about the 211 helpline, a real number you can dial in most of the United States that connects you to local aid, shelter resources, and reuse programs. I am telling you these names on purpose because when you are at the bottom, you think you are alone. You are not alone. You are just standing in a room you did not know had doors. On one of those free groups, a man 3 towns over posted photographs of an old cargo trailer sitting in his back field. The kind landscapers haul mowers in. The floor had rotted through in one corner, the tires were flat and cracked from sitting, and he said if somebody hauled it off his property that week, it was theirs, free. I read that post 4 times. My heart was pounding like I had found gold, because I had. I did not have a truck to haul it. I want to be honest about that, because this is where most people quit. They find the thing and then hit the wall of how, and they let go. I did not let go. I posted in the same group asking if anyone with a truck and a trailer hitch could help me move something, and I offered the only thing I had, which was $40 and a plate of food. A retired mechanic named Earl answered. Earl had a diesel pickup and a bad hip and a soft spot for people the world had counted out. He would not take my $40. He took the plate of food. And he hauled that rotting trailer to a scrap of lease land I had found. Let me tell you about the land, because you are wondering, and it matters. I did not buy land. I could not. What I did instead was find a rural landowner with acreage he was not using, and I offered to pay a tiny lease and keep an eye on the property, watch for trespassers, keep the brush down. $50 a month. That was it. There are people all over this country sitting on land that costs them taxes and gives them nothing, and some of them will happily let a quiet, careful person park a small structure at the back of it for less than the cost of a phone bill. You do not need to own the earth to stand on it. You need one honest handshake with someone who has more than they can use. So now I had a shell, a rotting, ugly, wonderful shell that was mine, and winter was coming. This is the part I need you to lean in for, because this is where the cold nearly won. Before I go any further, I want to pause for just a moment, because what I am about to share with you next took me years to piece together through frozen nights and hard lessons, and I have put all of it in one place so you do not have to start from zero the way I did. I wrote it all down in a book called First Shelter, also published as Build Deeper and Built from Nothing, and it walks you through every step, every material, every mistake I made so you can skip the worst of them. It is $97, and every detail is waiting for you at the link in the description, shelterfromnothing.com. If tonight you are feeling that same quiet desperation I felt in that parking lot, this is the thing I wish had existed when I needed it most. Now, back to the wall that nearly let the cold win, because this is where it gets real. The first hard freeze hit before I was ready. I had patched the rotted floor with plywood scraps and screwed down 2 layers of that free foam board, taping the seams with foil tape I bought for $11, the only real money I spent on the floor. But the walls were still bare metal, and metal in winter is a heat thief with no mercy. That first freezing night inside the trailer, I watched my own breath hang in the air, and I understood that a shell alone would kill me just as surely as no shell at all. The temperature outside was in the low 20s. Inside, without insulation, it was barely better. I want to stop right here and talk to you directly, because I know some of you are listening to all this and thinking that it could never be you. You are thinking you have no truck, no Earl, no handy skills, no idea where to even start, and that people like me who figure this out must be different somehow, braver, smarter. I need you to know that is a lie the wheel tells you to keep you on it. This next part is the part I built specifically for you, the one who feels frozen out before you even begin. Because the very first thing I did that actually held, the thing that changed a metal box into something I could survive in, cost me almost nothing and required no skill at all. I lined those walls with cardboard first. Plain cardboard, broken down from appliance boxes I pulled from behind a furniture store, free for the taking. Cardboard traps pockets of air, and trapped air is what insulation actually is. Over the cardboard, I pressed my scavenged foam board, cutting it with a bread knife, holding it in place with more foil tape, and, in the worst spots, cheap spray foam I found half-used in a hardware store's damaged goods bin for $2 a can. Then, over all of it, I stapled a layer of reflective bubble insulation, the shiny stuff, which bounces your body heat back at you instead of letting it escape. The night I finished the first wall, I sat with my back against it, and I could feel the difference with my bare hand. The metal had been pulling the warmth out of me for weeks. The insulated wall gave it back. I cried a little sitting there, and I am not a crier. It was the first time in almost a year that I felt like the cold was not winning. And every single material in that wall was free or nearly free, pulled from a dumpster or a giveaway or a damaged bin. You do not need money to start. You need to see the world differently. You need to look at what everyone else throws away and see the walls of your future home. But warmth held in is not the same as warmth made. And that brings me to the mistake that nearly burned everything down. I got cocky after the walls. I thought, I have sealed this box up tight. Now I just need heat inside it. So I did what a lot of desperate people do, and I brought in a little propane heater, the portable kind, and I ran it through the night. I woke up at some black hour with a headache splitting my skull and a heaviness in my chest like a hand pressing down. Some instinct, some animal part of me threw the door open, and the cold air hit my face, and my head cleared just enough to understand what had almost happened. I had sealed my home so well that the propane had eaten the good air and started filling it with the bad. Carbon monoxide. Silent. No smell. It kills people in exactly this situation every winter, and I had come within one deep sleep of being one of them. That was the night I learned that a free home is worthless if it kills you, and that ventilation is not optional, it is the price of staying alive. I bought a battery carbon monoxide detector for $15, the single most important $15 I have ever spent, and I cut a small vent and a fresh air intake into the trailer. But I also swore off the propane heater for good. I needed heat that made its own clean draft, heat that pulled its own smoke up and out and away from me, and I had no idea how I was going to get it without spending money I did not have. For 3 more weeks, I got by on layers and body heat and a single candle in a flower pot trick that takes the edge off a tiny space. But the deep cold was coming, the real cold, the kind that had already touched 9 degrees one night and left frost on the inside of my window. I knew that trick would not carry me through. I lay awake doing the math and coming up empty, and for the first time since the grocery store, I felt the fear creep back in that maybe I had climbed all this way just to freeze at the top. Then I found the thing I promised you at the very beginning, and I need you to understand it, because it is the whole reason I am still here to tell you this. I had seen people online talk about something called a rocket mass heater, and I had scrolled past it 100 times because it sounded complicated and expensive and like something for people with workshops and money. But that freezing, desperate week, I finally sat down and actually learned what it was, and what it is almost unbelievable, so let me tell it to you plainly. A rocket mass heater burns wood, but it burns it in a way that is so efficient it will make your jaw drop. Instead of a normal fire that sends most of its heat straight up the chimney and out into the sky, this design forces the fire to burn sideways and then straight up through an insulated tube, so hot and so complete that it burns its own smoke. The exhaust that comes out the far end is so cool you can nearly hold your hand over it. People who have measured it say these heaters can use 80 to 90% less wood than a normal wood stove to heat the same space. 80 to 90% less. That means a few sticks of scrap wood, twigs, broken pallet slats, the branches lying dead on the ground for free everywhere in this country become an entire evening of warmth. And here is the part that made me sit up in the dark. The heat does not just fly away when the fire goes out. You run that hot exhaust tube through a mass, a bench of packed earth or salvaged brick, or even old cinder blocks, and that mass soaks up the heat like a stone in the sun and then radiates it back for hours and hours after the flames are gone. You feed a small fire in the evening, and the bench stays warm against your back all night long while you sleep. I built mine out of trash. The combustion core was that rusted steel drum somebody had abandoned by the road, the one I told you about. The burn tunnel and the riser I made from a scavenged metal duct and some fire brick I found listed for free on a demolition site where an old bakery was being torn out. The mass bench was old cinder blocks and buckets of clay soil I dug right out of the ground on the leased land, mixed with sand, packed by hand around the pipe. It was filthy, heavy, back-breaking work, and I got it wrong twice before I got it right. The first time it smoked because my chimney was too short. The second time, it would not draw because I had made the burn tunnel too long. I want you to know it was not clean or easy. I had clay under my nails for a month, but the night it finally worked, I will never forget as long as I live. I dropped a match onto a handful of dry twigs, and instead of a lazy little fire, that thing lit with a low roar, like a jet far away, pulling the flame down and sideways and up the riser. Within 20 minutes, the steel drum was too hot to touch, and the heat was pouring off it in waves. I fed it nothing but dead branches and broken bits of pallet, a few pieces at a time. And that night, when the outside temperature fell to 9 degrees, I sat inside in a single shirt with the door of my free trailer home closed and the clay bench warming the whole room, and I was warm. Genuinely, deeply warm, for the first time in a winter I thought might end me. The smoke coming out the far end was so thin and cool it barely showed. The fire went out around 10 at night, and the mass bench was still giving off heat when I woke up at dawn. I burned less wood in a whole week than a normal stove burns in a night, and every stick of it I gathered off the ground for free. No propane bill, no electric bill, no wood to buy. Just fallen branches and the laws of physics working in my favor for once. That is the secret I climbed all this way to hand you. Not a gadget you have to buy, a principle you can build from a discarded barrel, some free brick, and the dirt under your feet. The people who profit from keeping you cold and dependent do not want you to know that a fire built the right way needs almost nothing to feed it, but now you know. It has been holding me warm for years. I want to tell you what my life costs now, because when I say I built my home for free, I mean it, and I want you to feel how real that number is. I have no rent, I have no mortgage. I pay $50 a month to lease the ground I sit on. My water I collect off the roof in a barrel and filter, and in the deep cold I haul it. My power is one small solar panel I bought used for $60 that runs my lights and charges my phone. My heat is free branches. Some months, my total cost of living, everything, is under $100. Compare that to the $70,000 I once poured into other people's pockets, and you will understand why I will never go back. And here is what the shame taught me, now that I am on the other side of it. All those people who looked away when I dug through the dumpster, all the laughter, the pity, the man who muttered to his buddy, they were not stronger than me. Most of them were one bad month, one layoff, one medical bill away from the exact spot I was standing in, and some of them knew it, and that is why they could not look at me. I was the thing they were afraid of becoming, but I was not a warning. I was proof that if it ever happened to them, they could survive it too. I just got there first. If you are sitting there right now feeling squeezed, feeling like the wheel is spinning faster than you can run, I need you to hear the one thing I most wish someone had told me on the night I put that bread back. You are not helpless. The materials to keep yourself warm and sheltered are being thrown away all around you every single day, and the networks to find free shelter and free shells and free help already exist, sitting there quietly waiting for you to dial the number or join the group. The only thing standing between you and starting is the lie that you need money and permission first. You do not. You need to open your eyes to what everyone else discards, and you need to refuse to be counted out. I was a woman with $4 short of a loaf of bread and a car with a cracked windshield. Today, I sleep warm in a home that no bank can take, on land I do not owe a dime on, heated by a fire that costs me nothing but a walk to gather sticks. If I could climb that ladder, one rotting trailer and one rusted barrel at a time, then so can you, because you are the kind of person who is still here, still listening, still refusing to believe that this is all there is for you. So, let me ask you something, and I really want you to answer me. If you were starting tomorrow with almost nothing, what is the first free thing you would go looking for? The foam board behind a construction site? The trailer somebody wants hauled off their land? Or would you go straight for the barrel to build the heater that changed everything for me? Tell me in the comments, and tell me where you are watching from, because I read them, and I want to know who is out there climbing. And if any part of this loosened something in your chest, if you felt that clean anger or that spark of maybe I could too, then stay with me. This is a place for people who are done being written off, people rebuilding a home and their dignity out of what the world threw away. Follow along, because next I am going to show you exactly how I collect and purify every drop of water I use for free, off a roof, through a filter I built for under $30, the piece that finally made me completely independent. You do not want to miss the day the last bill disappeared for good. I'm still here, and if you are too, this is for you. What I just showed was the overview. Inside the shelter builders, I keep going the full build step by step. And in there, you can ask me anything, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be doing this alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen. Cancel anytime with one click. Come join me. Now, building your home is only half the story. What if someone you love suddenly had nowhere to go? Next, I'll show you how to raise a warm, safe shelter in just minutes, spending nothing. It's starting right here.